Serious, those of you who worked undercover, what is the most taboo thing you witnessed, but could not intervene as to not blow your cover? IDK if I'd count this as me being undercover, but I'll give it a whirl. I used to own a game store where we buy and sell MTG cards in Maryland. There was a big tournament in Pittsburgh the weekend before where someone's collection was stolen, worth a few $1,000s. That day, we were visited by someone we'd never seen in the store before looking to sell a collection matching the description of the stolen collection. I told them that we were interested but needed to set up a longer time to sit down and look through the collection. We set up a time for the next Tuesday and they went on their way. We then called the police in Pittsburgh, who connected us with the detective. He worked with our local Montgomery County police and they set up a sting. There were 3 cops in the store pretending to play. One actually knew how and is now a regular, and 2 more cars outside. When the guy came into the store, I did exactly what I would have done with a regular collection. Rung it up, negotiated and paid the guy for the collection. Once the money exchanged hands, the cops busted him. Collection was returned to the kid in Pittsburgh and the guy ended up with some plea deal involving probation. I once took my vehicle to an independent shop for routine maintenance. I said I was dropping it off for as long as it might take as I was going to take a long trip the following month. I sat across the street in a diner eating soup and drinking coffee. I got a call that my vehicle needed about $4,500 worth of work an hour and a half later. It never left the parking spot. I told them I didn't want anything done. They said it was half a part already. Frick you Firestone. I am an assistant service manager at a dealership. That Firestone was turned into a parking lot. Worked as a ghost passenger for an airline. Basically I flew around and graded flight attendants' performance. While still parked at the gate with the door open, one flight attendant began berating passengers who were using their smartphones, which was completely permitted at the gate. She threatened to have the person in front of me thrown off the plane if she didn't put hers away. She also threatened me. After we left the gate and were taxiing to the runway, I looked back to see her sitting in her jump seat, using her phone. Took a photo of it and included that in my report. She initially denied using the phone and claimed I was being unruly on the aircraft. After she saw the photo, she changed her tune. I was running a wire. We were looking to arrest a guy who beat a 2-year-old so bad she had broken femurs. We wired up mom and had her go to the boyfriend's house and try and get him to confess. Mom started out great, led the boyfriend along and started to fricking blow him. He then fricked her. The man who beat her daughter so bad she was life-lighted. She fricked him on wire. I was punching my dashboard and wishing I could arrest her as well. It was awful. I am a private investigator, contracted by governments to check massage shops to see if they're soliciting. I usually get sent to shops which have had multiple complaints and an investigation is in its final stages and they need evidence to support their case. So, I go to one place. Everything seems normal except for being asked to strip bare for an oil massage. Eventually I am asked to flip over. Therapist without asking just starts rubbing some gel on my parts. At this point, I am obligated to refuse and finish the session. I ask her to stop, but halfway through the sentence I am hit with the most intense pain. Turns out, she was new and was unaware that alcohol gel is not the same as massage oil. Long story short, manager was convicted of coercing staff on the basis of their visas being revoked if they didn't comply, and I had to stand in court and tell the events of that day. I worked as a HIPAA inspector for a bit. Crap is scary. I'd go in and say I was looking for my mom, that they called me she was in an accident. I was early 20s. Pretty much every place I went gave me all kinds of protected info on the patient. The company would have placed fake records in the computer. One smaller urgent care place was like, no one with that name, here's our sign-in log for the week. Take a look with last names, first names and reason for visit. Yikes. I worked for an armored car service for a while as an undercover guard. When a place had a lot of money or if it was a risky area, 2 plainclothes guards would arrive before the truck. I would scout the place and outside to make sure the uniform guys could get in and out safe. We wore a color of the day and the local cops knew who we were, as did the uniformed guards. It was a pretty easy job and I only once waved off a pickup because of a bunch of Latin kings sitting on benches out front. I hung out a while to see what was going on and hoping they would leave so we could make the pickup. As I sat on a bus bench across the road, I watched one of the guys take out his needlepoint. I never would think that a gang member would tote his needlepoint to a stick-up job. Former loss prevention here. Best job ever, by the way. Witnessed so much freaking in the stock rooms. Couples, singles, trios, you name it. We had cameras everywhere, of course, especially in the stock rooms due to rampant employee theft. We had countless hours of employee fricks on tape. We couldn't reveal the cameras, which would tip off the thieves, so all we could do was watch. I used to work for furniture showroom stores that sold out of catalogs. I ran 2 stores and helped others. One of my jobs was to go to other stores and pretend to be a customer. Most of the scenarios involved various selling points, product knowledge, and upsells. I had to get a written estimate as proof, but also I checked store security, the condition of the store, and so on. Worst was I entered a store and there was no one in there. It was during open hours, but the entire showroom was vacant. So I wandered into the back room. I changed a few things around, and I went into the till, and put in a note on the back of my business card that I had been in their till. After half an hour, I just left. I wouldn't have locked the store up if I had the key. I called the manager and let her know, and she got in her car and immediately drove to the store. There were employees in there by the time she got there, but she checked under the till and saw my business card. She spoke to the employees, who said that they were there the whole time, but were at a loss to explain the business card and the stuff in the back room I had messed up. I think she fired her staff on the spot. I can't remember what happened after that. Another time I was part of an FBI sting. There was a group of people that were using stolen credit cards to buy large ticket items and have them delivered to the store for parking lot pickup, which was an option at a lot of people that lived in rural areas where delivery was not available. But of course, you wouldn't have to verify your address either. All we cared was that you showed up and picked up the merchandise you ordered. The group of people that were using stolen credit cards were actually made up of a few former employees of the company who knew how to game the system. But the FBI was wise to a lot of their thefts, and they set up a sting operation at my store with the drivers. All they had to do was sign for the furniture to complete the deal that they had picked up the stolen merchandise that they had paid for with stolen credit cards. Once they did that, several armored men with guns jumped out of the back of the truck and surrounded the 4-5 people, ordered them to the ground, where they were handcuffed and carried away. They didn't even resist, so except for that one moment where you knew that a bunch of agents were going to jump out of a delivery truck, was actually kind of boring. I'm a TV producer. I was working on a popular documentary a while ago. We were following a woman who was addicted to H and had resorted to prostitution in order to make money to support her habits. One day, a friend of hers got thrown into jail. She decided she needed to work really hard to bail them out. So she called her friend who owned a crack house that he let girls like her turn tricks in at about $10 a pop. To answer Up's question, I witnessed this girl share needles with many people and watched as John after John came into the house and disappeared into the bedroom with her for a little bit. Saw bored adults wanting to give drugs to little kids to see what they would do while high. Couldn't intervene legally but was able to use normal social discouragement and shaming to stop them. Specifically, there was one girl who thought it would be hilarious to get a little kid high. The kid was probably about 10 or 11, exactly the age you should never be doing drugs. She seemed really oddly excited about it, like it was the best idea in the world or the most exciting thing she had ever come up with, and the other guy with her just wanted to appease her to get in her pants, or had no morals, or whatever. So nobody in this group of people thought to stop it or say no. Come on, accept me. Some things are just wrong. I don't really have anything against adults using drugs personally, but giving them to young kids is about the most trashy thing you could do. Like some others here, I also worked as a private detective. Nothing too taboo that I couldn't intervene in. But when you do mostly workman's comp, there's a lot of completely despicable crap going on. Other times, you get some weird crap. Some examples. 1. There was a guy we were watching that was completely dominating some handicap competitions in the state. He really sold the handicap. Big time. The only time he broke character was when he would stand up and unload his wheelchair from his van in his privacy fenced backyard. 2. Where are all of the school district's computers going? To people who buy them from the security guards at the warehouse. That one actually made the news. 3. Where is all this soda going? To the truck drivers. This one I actually was interviewed and hired into the company to watch what happens on night shift. I do social engineering for financial institutions, banks, credit unions etc. I went to a credit union in Texas where the entire place failed on a miserable basis for security. I walked in with a fake badge that stated I worked for a made-up company and I was there to an inspection of the building. I dressed in a polo and khaki pants with matching colors to my badge and walked into the front desk. The girl there was probably in college or just out of school. She immediately let me into the back room and I walked into offices and desks that were unoccupied but located in rooms with other employees. I walked up to empty computers and used and plugged USB drives in, huge no, and began typing random things into computers and taking pictures of myself at the computers. Employees would literally look at me and go back to their jobs without thinking anything of a guy taking selfies at their friend's work desk. Once I had been in every office, I went to the vice president's office and opened her desk and looked through files to find personal people's information. Found tons. I went into the file room and took personal loan documents off the shelf and took pictures of myself accessing them. When I was done, I walked to the person who had contracted my company and laid out all the information I had found and all the things I had done, and the guy just sighed. This scenario has happened a couple of different times. Most places fail somehow. Sometimes it's fun and interesting. Sometimes it's boring and there's nothing worth staying. I worked as a secret shopper for a while for a small store. The most egregious thing I found were employees would hide inventory if they knew a sale was coming up. I'd also go in and ask questions about what equipment I should use just to test their general knowledge. Most failed, but there were young kids getting paid crap, so I felt bad squealing on them. I also forgot to add that I had to put up with being hit on by teenagers and creepy older guys. I had to play along and see if they knew their crap despite throwing terrible game. I used to investigate insurance fraud. The one thing I saw that made me the maddest was when I was working in the rundown area near the Philly Zoo and saw a strung out mother walking with her toddler and jerking his arm and screaming at him for not keeping up with her quick walking pace. The kid was not even 2 years old. I really wanted to get out of the car. The funniest one was where I had to go undercover in a bar to investigate this one person. You ever see the Stallone movie Over the Top? Yeah, that's pretty much what this guy ended up doing right on the bar, right in front of my hidden camera, and looking direct into my camera lens. It was awesome. The arm wrestling match went on for minutes, and this by a guy too hurt to work. At times it was very entertaining to work undercover. A trafficked woman overdosed on Xanax and God knows what being thrown over a shoulder to get her to her private pea shoot at 3 AM at a motel. I had to help do her hair and makeup while she was unconscious in the back seat. I still cry to this day thinking about her, and many others. But she was one of the women held in that house that was prostituting for years on her own. She'd seen worse and chose worse. If I stopped it then, the young innocent girls taking ads for hot girls wanted free trip to Miami to be a model. 1K a day would have been screwed. The guy is still trafficking and exploiting young naive women. He just changed his house and agency name once the FBI came in randomly. We did not call them. The US only wants to go after the ones that have women under 18. He gets them at 18 and one day, no joke, he'll make them wait an hour or two to board their flight so they're legal. I was told to pull out once they realized the girls being drugged and our ped were over 18. I have nightmares every night about it. Some of those girls have never been seen again. When I worked QA for a video game publisher, they had me work an E3 as a secret player. Basically I got to play new games for that publisher and act like they were amazing in front of press. While I was taking a break, I saw one of the producers hooking up with a booth babe. He didn't recognize me, but I knew he was married and had a kid on the way. I didn't say crap. He got laid off when the rest of us did about a year later. But that's just kinda how E3 goes. Couple showed up to a party with their kids, boy about 11, girl around 9, get paid by host, have kids do it with each other for entertainment of some of the people present. For further tips, let a couple sickos join in after a few minutes. Kids have been safely wards of the state for several years now for your information. I wasn't exactly undercover. but there was a degree of subterfuge involved. When I was working in the customer service department of a health insurance company, I had a call one day that was just a little off. The guy was calling from a pharmacy about a problem with his prescription. That was the normal part. The red flag was his demeanor. He was agitated, as anyone would be in that situation, but he was being overly polite. Normally in this situation, even a very tolerant person would still have some choice words for his insurance carrier. Not this guy. Everything was yes, sir, and if it wouldn't be too much trouble, sir. It just didn't quite fit. To better assist him, I asked him what prescription he was trying to fill, the dosage, and the quantity. He was getting oxy, maximum quantity, maximum dosage. The plot thickens. So I asked him to hold while I checked with our pharmacy vendor to see if they could shed some light on the issue. What I was actually doing was having my team lead research the guy. It took a while, so I had to keep coming back to the call to ask the guy if he wouldn't mind waiting just a little longer. That's not a problem at all, sir. I don't mind waiting one bit. At this point, he was starting to sound anxious, still very polite. What my team lead found was that the guy was getting prescriptions for basically every narcotic under the sun filled at different pharmacies all over town. And so was his wife. Maximum dosage, maximum quantity. The reason he couldn't get this particular prescription filled is because our pharmacy vendor flagged his policy and it was under review. That flag had just been placed that very morning, but they hadn't had a chance to take any action just yet. By this point, I've got my team lead on the phone with the pharmacy vendor, my supervisor on the phone with our internal fraud investigators, and my manager on the phone with an Leo in the guy's jurisdiction. Just before the call ended, I heard the cop walk up next to him, address him by his full name, and tell him to hang up the phone. He and his wife got dinged for numerous counts of distribution and insurance fraud. The director of our fraud unit invited me to her office to thank me for being proactive. She also talked to me about going to school to become a fraud investigator. That director is now a VP, and I still get a high five from her when I pass her in the halls. You have been visited by the Wisdom Papa. Type study well Papa or you will fail your next test at school. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.